Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds. It was called All Those Who Wander. As the episode begins, we are listening to Uhura's personal log, during which she explains that because her and her one fellow cadet's training assignments on Enterprise are over, she's about to depart Enterprise to go back to Earth. Meanwhile, La'an has been getting mental health help. It turns out that the Enterprise is on its way to Space Station K7, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the one from The Trouble with Tribbles, to deliver some power cells that need to get there by a certain time. For some reason, they get sent on another priority mission at the same time to help a downed ship, the USS Peregrine, on a crazy icy planet, which strikes me as odd because why would Starfleet send them on two missions at the same time? That seems unusual to me. Anyway, Pike decides to take a pair of shuttlecrafts and a couple of crew members to help with the downed ship, while number one continues on to K7. One of the crew members is Hemmer, who seems to enjoy the planet's environment because it reminds him of Andoria. On the other hand, Uhura is not enjoying it. It's very cold. There was a weird moment when they first arrived where Spock accidentally refers to a very newly promoted lieutenant as an ensign and is told that he has to buy him a drink, but Spock wouldn't make that mistake, so I don't know, I found that odd. Anyway, it isn't long before they find a bunch of bodies, one of them being the captain of the Peregrine. It seems that the ship's controls were transferred to engineering for some reason, and that the ship was using an alternate means of power by physically rerouting it from one location to others. Lieutenant Kirk is one of the crew members as well, and while searching for survivors on the surface in the nearby area, while the rest of the crew goes aboard the ship for the same reason, he and a bunch of other crew members that he's with find a pile of pretty badly mangled bodies. Back on the Peregrine, when the crew is able to play the captain's log, they discover that the ship was the victim of a Gorn attack, which occurred when they brought some stranded people aboard from a planet they were at, one of whom had been infected with Gorn eggs, a fact which somehow got by the transporter's scanners. And it turns out that the damage to the ship was caused when one of those people tried to destroy the ship with a grenade, I guess because they didn't want the Gorn to kill everybody on the ship or to get off the ship or something. He just figured that was the best way out. Anyway, Pike, La'an, and Uhura encounter an alien that they're unable to communicate with on the Peregrine, and he leads them to a humanoid girl that I guess he's been surviving with, and she's one of the people that the ship originally rescued. Uhura and Hemmer have a conversation about her future, during which he tells her that he thinks she's afraid of putting down roots. The alien guy suddenly seems to be quite unwell, and then a whole bunch of Gorn babies suddenly burst out of him, which is odd because Dr. Umbenga swore after scanning him and the girl that they were both clean. Chapel manages to secure herself behind a force field in sickbay, but Lieutenant Duke is not so lucky when he gets attacked and dragged off by a couple of these Gorn, which is really weird because they're tiny. But I guess it turns out that they don't stay tiny very long, because a couple of minutes later, a Gorn the size of a large dog pounces on Hemmer and Uhura, prompting Hemmer to jump in front of Uhura to protect her from an attack, which causes him to catch what seems to be some acidic spew from the Gorn right in the face, before La'an shoots it and it runs off. When Spock says that he finds the Gorn's biology impressive because they're able to evade scanners and everything, Lieutenant Kirk kind of loses his shit on him, calls him all kinds of names related to the fact that he doesn't display emotion, and, that he seems detached from the death of Lieutenant Duke, who died right in front of them all, and he has to be called off by the captain because he was getting pretty heated with Spock. With systems online after repairs, Pike decides to set a trap for the Gorn, which involves lowering the temperatures all over the ship, because the Gorn hate the cold, and it would seem because they can track them by heat signature. Spock tries to goad one of the Gorn into chasing him by firing at it from a distance, but it doesn't work. So when La'an tells him to get aggressive and, fight it directly, he allows his aggressive thoughts that he's been suppressing, apparently, into his heart, and then he yells and goes all kamikaze on it and becomes so overtaken by the rage that he allows himself to feel that when Lieutenant Kirk grabs him to pull him out of the way of an attacking Gorn, he fights back for a moment before realizing what's happening. La'an then gets one to chase her, and she runs into engineering and hides inside of a storage container, and when it attacks the container to try to get her, Hemmer blasts it with cold and kills it. Thinking that that was the last one of the four that had burst from the alien, The crew cheers, but then they realize that Hemmer's been infected via the venom blast that he took in place of Uhura. And after giving her some advice, telling her to basically do what she's afraid to do, which in her case, in his estimation, is put down roots, Hemmer sacrifices himself by leaving the ship and falling over a cliff, which sucks because I was really starting to like his character. So I'm bummed that he's gone. The Peregrine is able to get back up into space, even though it's badly damaged. And then aboard Enterprise, after a brief memorial service, Spock loses his shit and punches a wall, at which point Chapel approaches him. And he explains that it's dangerous to be near him because after having let out some of his rage on the ship, he's having trouble controlling his emotions, which he thinks makes him weak. At which point Chapel reminds him that he's not weak, he's human. Of course, only partly human, but anyway. La'an decides to take a leave of absence to pursue the search for the girl's family. As the episode ends, we get an indication that Uhura has changed her mind about leaving and has decided to stay on Enterprise when she enters the bridge and glances, with a bit of excitement it seemed, at the communications console as the theme music plays. So I thought this was a pretty good episode. It reminded me very much of like Alien and the sequels and The Thing, as well as other films in that genre. But one thing I'm not sure about is whether or not all of the technical stuff they were saying about how the Gorn can't be detected by sensors because of their biology and all of that, and how they got by the transporter scans, and then even the medical scans makes sense given prior Star Trek history, but I'm sure someone who knows whether it does or doesn't make sense will be saying so shortly in one of their review videos. I thought the cast did a great job, especially in the scene before the mission where they're having a meeting over breakfast. They play off each other very naturally, and they're just believable to me as a crew. And part of that is the writing. The writing is done in such a way that it just works. It makes these people seem real and believable as a crew that are, working together. The cinematography in this episode on the planet's surface was excellent because it looked super realistic, and it's interesting because I saw production still, which showed that the wide shot of the downed ship on the planet's surface that we see as the crew arrives on the planet and is approaching it was accomplished by means of converting an entire studio area into the planet's surface set, the back wall of which was constructed with the image of the downed ship from floor to ceiling, creating the illusion of the ship being in the distance through forced perspective, which was also accomplished by the ceiling being decorated to look like, I guess, the sky. And though I'm guessing some level of visual effects were used to hide the edges and the corners and all that, that's really cool because I can just imagine being on that set and, having my mind blown, but also because it harkens back to some of the practical effect planetscapes that we would see on the older Star Trek shows, as well as other older shows and movies that needed similar backdrops. I'm very impressed with how modern digital effects can create entire environments, be a, a shot taking place on the ground or in the sky or in the ocean that make you believe that the structures are real and that a landscape is real, that the scene was shot on location. But there's something about shooting with more practical effects that to me seems more honest, which is to say that I think that they often do these things with digital effects to create whole environments only in order to avoid shooting on location as a money-saving measure. And I find that to be kind of cheesy. I mean, sometimes they do it because the environment they're creating is alien and couldn't be recreated practically on Earth without looking like a set, at least maybe for the big screen. So it's forgivable in that case. But sometimes they do it just to create, like, the Riviera or a cityscape, a regular Earth cityscape. And it's like, why? Why don't you just shoot on location? Well, obviously because it's expensive, and maybe because of time. But it's like, that's cheesy. It's really impressive, but cheesy. So I like this kind of practical effect thing. I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, I wonder who the new engineer is going to be and who's going to replace La'an, at least temporarily, and I hope only temporarily. I really like the character, and I hope she's not gone long. The alien guy was really cool, and it's unfortunate that we don't know what species he is or anything like that. It would have been cool to know that. I'm bummed out that we didn't get to see Space Station K7, even though I assume number one was successful in bringing the power cells there, because like I said, I think that's the space station from The Trouble with Tribbles. But Yeah, I like this episode. Like I say, it reminded me of Alien and other movies, and I thought they did a really good job. I guess I would say I'm a little skeptical that the Gorn are that much of a threat that, the crew runs from them like crazy, like you would the xenomorphs in Alien. I don't know. I guess we're supposed to believe they're really that dangerous. And I guess to a certain extent, they have been depicted as being that dangerous in the past. I will say that I didn't like the character model for the Gorn. I don't know. Not only does it not match, the original series, of course, that ship sailed on Enterprise, but I don't know. It just doesn't, I don't know. I don't like it. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't think it's very good, but that's just me. I don't know. Maybe it'll grow on me. Anyway, yeah, good episode. The season finale is next week. I'm excited for it, but I'm also bummed out. I'm wondering if we're going to see Cybok or if they're going to hold him for next season. We'll have to see. I'm bummed, like I said, that Hemmer is gone. I was really starting to like his character, and I'm going to miss La'an until she comes back, which I'm assuming she will. But anyway, I'm going to get out of here. I will be back soon with more content. Until then, my friends, I wish you peace and long life.